Hey, everybody. As we wait for people to filter in, and we'll give everybody a minute or two here to let Zoom let everybody into the webinar. If you want to share where you're dialing in from in the chat, please feel free to leave city, state, country if you're outside the US. It's always interesting to see where everybody is dialing in from. And we'll give everybody, hey, Colorado. All right. Anna also from Boston. Love it. Temecula. Actually know a friend who works in a strip mall in Temecula, California. New York City. Amazing. Jamaica.
Oh, wow.
Is it Texas, Toronto? Awesome. Hey, Deirdre. Susan, Jackie. Nice to see some familiar names, folks that have joined us before in our webinars. And
A
we'll
lot
just,
of people.
yeah,
A lot of people.
a lot of people fractionally curious.
Yeah.
I love it. Good morning from the Bay Area. Yes, still the morning.
Saw Sam Eaton from the UK in there.
Hey,
Oh,
Hi,
Sue.
Sam.
Hey, Sam.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining our discussion today. Some of you attended the February session that we had on building a fractional HR career, and we just had a ton of engagement. It was a lot of fun, shared a lot of insights, and it sparked some great conversations, both in the webinar itself as well as offline. Because if you've been on a webinar with us before, you know we always have our networking power hour and encourage people to connect after this in a one-on-one basis. Based on that response, we knew we had to bring this topic back and go even deeper. And so in the past, we've sort of done these 101 discussions on, how do I get started in fractional? How do I get my first customer, et cetera? And today, we're really focusing the conversation on people who have already gotten started. They're building a fractional HR career, and we're going to focus on how to keep growing, how to stay in demand, how to build a long-term and sustainable business. We'll cover things like pricing models, managing multiple clients, avoiding burnout, and knowing when or if to scale. We're joined by two amazing people, many of you know, Tracie and Alex. And before I get into their bios, I thought I would just introduce myself for anybody that haven't met yet. My name is Phil Strazula. I'm the founder of Select Software Reviews, a company focused on helping organizations find and buy the right HR and recruiting tools through in-depth reviews that around 100,000 companies a month read to figure out what ATS, HRIS to buy. And then we also have a team of HR tech experts who are dedicated to giving tailored advice in an unbiased way to people who are in the process of trying to figure out what ATS should I buy, what HRIS, et cetera. We also run a job board for people operations professionals and have a lot of other free resources. Everything that we have on our website, from the one-on-one advisor calls to people ops jobs, is totally free. I'm joined here by two amazing people who have built their fractional practices and lives and are generous enough to share their insights, their stories, their wins, their losses, their tactics. First is Tracie Sponenberg. Tracie is a fractional HR executive with 25 years of HR leadership experience with a focus on aligning people strategy with business strategy, specifically in industries with deskless employees. Alex is a global people leader, entrepreneur, startup advisor, mental health and DEI champion with expertise on building out systems that foster an equitable, innovative, and inclusive workplace culture. So welcome to you both. Thank you so much for coming back, sharing your insights with everybody. I noticed a couple of people have left their LinkedIn URLs in the chat. If you don't mind, just hold off on doing that. We're actually going to have a dedicated LinkedIn sharing networking power hour in about 30 minutes. And that's a great way for everybody to connect with other people who are building their fractional practices. We just found that's a lot more efficient. So please hold off on sharing your LinkedIn URLs. That said, we love to have an interactive discussion. And so if you've got questions, you've got insights to share, we've got some people on here, some names on here that I'm sort of feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome that they're going to learn from us today because they've built fractional practices. And so if you've got something to share in the chat, please do so. We are going to try to cover everything that people have in terms of questions. Some housekeeping, this session is being recorded. You'll get an email with the recording. This session is good for one HRCI or SHRM credit. We'll send all the logistics out about that at the end as well. Again, let's keep it interactive and engaging. And with that in mind, we'll launch a poll real quick to just kind of gauge people where they are coming from, what they are looking for in terms of content from this next hour. We've got an awesome jam-packed agenda. And we also have amazing questions that many of you have left when they RSVP'd. And yeah, looking forward to kind of jumping right in here. So please feel free to answer that poll. If the answer to that question is not one of those 4 checkboxes, leave it in the chat. We'd love to know what you're kind of looking to get out of this session. And I think, first and foremost, Tracie and Alex, I'd love to get your opinions on, you've left corporate world, you got your first client, maybe it was your employer, somebody in your direct network, whatever the case may be. How do you think about making this into a more sustainable business and doing the business development so that you have a couple of clients? Where are we getting these from? How many clients should we be searching for? How do you think about building your pipeline and just making sure that you stay busy enough to hit your salary and revenue goals?
It's a lot of questions in one, Phil.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's the webinar. We'll just talk about this.
Sorry, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Start where you want to.
Oh, go ahead, Alex.
Tracie usually likes me to start. So
yes, I do like Alex to start.
Yeah, so we'll start there. I think there are a lot of questions in there. I'll take what I can recall / think is top of mind. I think the first thing is there is from my perspective, no silver bullet in terms of how to do this or one way by which to do it. I think there's different ways. I think if cultivating like a presence at like different sort of industry events or HR conferences, local businesses where you might find potential clients is one way. Maybe complementing that things with like in-person networking and also some thought leadership content, whether it's on LinkedIn or elsewhere, hosting webinars like this, maybe appearing on podcasts for the sort of market you're trying to target, things like that. But I think those are a couple of things that stand out immediately, and also keeping in mind that word of mouth recommendations come a long way. So as you start working with people, they can also be your best surrogates in the market as well.
Yeah, and that's all great. And I think London talked about chamber meetings, et cetera. So I'll get back to that in a second. One of the things that helped me, and I know this helped Alex too, was actually having a network, in a pretty good size network when we started. And although I choke on the words personal branding, you got one whether you cultivate it or not. So I years ago started on LinkedIn, and at the beginning of the pandemic started posting regularly and didn't stop. That absolutely helped me. Absolutely helped me, and not necessarily finding clients directly, but establishing myself as a person who knows what they're talking about and sharing things regularly. And so, my clients for the most part don't come directly from my network, but they come from my network who might have a contact who needs what I do. So, or it comes from a speaking engagement or me being on a podcast, like the things that Alex said. I think that we don't talk enough about the importance of visibility in different areas in supporting your fractional practice. And that is really, really important. I talk to people all of the time that want to break into fractional that are like, well, I have not, managed my network, or I haven't kept up with my network, or I haven't kept up with people. And I've just been doing this because I love talking with people. Like there was no strategy behind this, right? So get curious about people. I know this is meant for people who are like like in growing the practice, but even if you're not, or if you're just starting, get curious about people and start having conversations with no expectations of an outcome or a referral. Just start having those conversations and get really curious about people, and that will pay dividends down the road.
Yeah, and I would just add, don't be so limited in your thinking as far as what networking actually means, because it can mean a lot of different things. Networking with other fractional executives who aren't necessarily in the people space, for example, because they could be referral business for you if they hear about things, and vice versa. It works in both directions, right? And the other thing is, I know I've seen it in the chat from the likes of Sam and Deb, but again, also being part of different fractional collectives. FPP is one that, fractional people is one that a lot of people speak about. There's also other ones, some that are less people specific. It's really all about what makes sense for you as well.
And your people you've worked for before, like you said in the very beginning, Phil, my first client was my former employer, and my second client was somebody who referred them to me because they knew me and knew what I could do and knew what I was embarking on. And so the chamber was mentioned. For me, that's an absolute nightmare. I'm a deep introvert. I'm autistic. So that's like horrifying to me. So that doesn't work for me. Neither does saying, hey, hire me to do this. I can't do that. But I found things that do work for me, and that's networking in a really quiet way. So I think that finding something that works for you, and if it's the chamber, I think that's awesome. Finding things that work for you and that make you comfortable, because if you're like me and you go there and you're just like, I'm hiding in the corner and I hate this, it's not probably going to be super successful for you. But if you thrive in that environment, go for it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we went to FPP, Fractional People, amazing resource. And a bunch of people in here have said, hey, I love FPP. Definitely check that out if you haven't yet. Somebody said in the chat, I think it was Deirdre, marketing destroys my soul or something like that, like marketing myself. And I really like, Tracie, what you said, which is, hey, meet somebody. There's no expectation of getting referral. There's no expectation of getting business. I'm just sort of meeting with you, understanding your business. Maybe I'm trying to add something to you, which I think is a great way to kind of go about this.
Yeah.
I'm wondering specifically, you both are very active on LinkedIn. And I'm wondering, is there, like, how do you figure out what to post on LinkedIn? And because some of it is, relevant to the work that you're doing. Some of it's personal updates. How do you think about it? Or do you not think about it? And just every day you're like, all right, I'm just going to, type something out here. What's your LinkedIn strategy or perhaps lack thereof?
No strategy. That's like, people hate to hear that, but like, and I think we're similar. Like, yes, we have brand partners, and so we do some posts that we, agree on with them, but it's what pops in my head. And I have a million things in my head all the time. And I sit down and I write when I feel like it, or I don't when I don't. And I think sometimes we can overthink LinkedIn, and then it has to be this great big, strategy to do that. And there are LinkedIn playbooks that supposedly work. I don't think about that. I just post what's on my mind and what I feel like I would want to read from someone.
Yeah, I'm very similar. I mean, we both know people who take a much more structured approach to this. Like they actually have content calendars built out for the coming months in terms, and if that works for them, they need that. And I appreciate that. For me, I'm like Tracie, it's got to feel organic. It's what pops in my head aside from anything for brand partnerships. And also that can come in waves. Like Tracie knows, there's days where I just don't feel like posting and it doesn't feel organic and it feels forced, and that's okay too, because you want it to resonate as well. And then there might be certain posts that like you just enjoy writing about. I mean, obviously Tracie loves coffee. Somebody mentioned that in that. So you'll always see a coffee post from Tracie. It's kind of her trademark. And then, I mean, recently I've done a range of things, but like I've been talking about what they don't teach you in HR school, because that's just something that resonates with people that have been in the HR space and are in the trenches every day, Yeah.
And somebody mentioned about what if you're not a big poster? And I think you don't have to. LinkedIn isn't the only way to find clients, but it is. Some of my closest friends, Alex included, came from LinkedIn. It's a community and it's a great way to connect with people, especially for introverts. It's so much easier for me to connect like that than in person.
Yeah.
I think to some extent, go ahead, Alex.
No, I was just going to mention, going back to your piece earlier, I forgot Seiler, is like, I think marketing can feel like a bit of a soul crusher for some people who don't like it, but I think sometimes it's just as simple, Phil, kind of as education, right? And educating people on what you're trying to do, and that piques people's interest, and like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that was an option. And so it opens up a dialogue versus feeling like a hard sell as well.
And it can
Yeah.
be outside of LinkedIn. Somebody else at Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I will never say, just because it's not comfortable for me, I won't say, hire me. Here's my rates. This is what I do. I'll share that with friends behind the scenes. I'll share that with, brand partners that reach out, but I won't say that. It's just not comfortable with me, for me. So I don't do a hard marketing at all. But I'll share like, hey, I'm just stepped out in the fractional world and on Facebook, and somebody will reach out to me from high school, and this happened, that said, hey, I know somebody who could use you. And so being that visibility and talking about that in whatever circles is most comfortable for you helps.
Yeah.
You're basically putting out like traps on the internet for like new friends, collaborators, and clients by talking about the things you care about in an authentic way. I think that's the key. Is
I think
as put in the chat.
authenticity. Yeah. Be you. Be you. There's only one you.
Yeah. And I would also say for introverts in particular, because obviously I'm seeing quite a bit, I definitely agree with what people are saying in there. Like, meeting one-on-one or intimate lunches is like, a good way to do it. But also like, if you've already got friends, and I know people say don't work with your friends, but like, but if you've got friends that you're already connected with who understand you and they might have a need, that could be another easy way to just start getting the ball rolling as well.
Your lawyers, brokers, associations that you've worked with, accounting firms, they hear of needs all the time. So developing relationships with those folks can help as well.
And it sounds like getting on the speaking circuit, which is sort of like a positive feedback loop, I find. Like if you're on a panel, you're much more likely to be asked to be on another panel. And it's sort of like, how do you get on those first like 2 or 3 panels? Can you guys kind of rewind the clock to before you kind of started doing this, maybe have a little bit of imposter syndrome? Like, how do you get those first couple of engagements? Are you doing outreach? Are you pitching yourself? How do you feel comfortable doing that if you haven't done it before?
You want to go, or do you want me to go?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I can say that for me, it started off a few years ago through podcasting, and I got approached by podcasts. And I will tell you, I was not as I had a level of social anxiety at that point that doesn't exist as much today, or might surprise some people, but I was like, oh my God, can I do this? And so after I did that, it just led to more podcasts. And then it was again through my network, people either reached out to me directly, or people in my network would say, are you interested in speaking on things? The more that people know about what you want to do and not do, that they'll engage you for those things as well. So that's kind of been the situation for me. And you don't have to like line up 8 engagements either, right? Like it could be like 1 or 2, make it a goal to make 1 or 2, if you like speaking and you want to do more, 1 to 2 a year. And then it's just a build over time. Because I didn't go in like hard out the gate. It was like, okay, here's some podcasts here and there. Then there's some speaking engagement lumped in. And it was a gradual, and like celebrate the small wins along the way as far as those things go too.
Yeah. So I went from nothing, like this was not on my list, to being I charge 5 figures for keynote speeches, right? And so this was not something I ever thought I could do, but I started by sharing information. So I was trying to be helpful to somebody that was having a local event, and they said, you want to co-present? It's like, no, but I did. And that gave me the confidence. And I think for if you're like me and you're scared of that, doing one thing that scares you like that and having it go even a little bit well will give you the confidence to do other things. So local events, hyper local events, panels are a really great way to get started. Really great way to get started. And, keynote speaking is a big part of my business now, which I couldn't have imagined, but it all started with saying yes to a random opportunity.
Yeah. And another one I'll add, I know Tracie's been involved more so than I have in the past, is Disrupt HR as well. So that gives you an opportunity to really, I mean, it's timed, you sign up to do it. I mean, if you want
Yes.
to get the butterflies out the way, that's one that can help do that as well.
And Hacking HR too. Hacking HR, I've advised tons of people to join their panels. It's a great way to get started.
Yeah.
I was actually just going to ask, hypothetical scenario, you're going to a local Disrupt HR event, or like today in Boston at Bentley University, there's the HR Tech Conference is doing like a mini local event, and you're in fractional. Do you have like a game plan or like thoughts in your head around networking and business development, or you're like, I'm just going to show up and try to learn, and if I bump into somebody in the hallway, that's great? How intentional are you, and any strategies for going to an event with sort of the goal, at least in the back of your head, of trying to get new business?
My clients aren't going to come from those events, but my friends are there. And what's super important, maybe even more important as a fractional leader, is continuous learning. So I need to somehow, whether it's going to events like that or whether it's learning on my own, I have to continue to learn. I think the difference with us now is that we have clients who are financially supporting things like that, and we do speak at events, and so it's a little bit easier. But it's something that I think every fractional leader has to determine if that's worth their investment.
Yeah, I would add, for me, it's definitely, especially in an era of AI, like continuous learning. It's whatever next is happening, we still need to know about it, and we need to know about it for our clients, whatever we're working on. I would say for me, I go in there now different than I used to. I do go in and think, could there be people that I have either been talking to on LinkedIn or have wanted to meet up with that are going to the Transforms or the other things? And could there be potential business opportunities out of that? I would say no more than 5 to 7, just because you've got to be realistic. And over a couple of days, I do like to see friends I know there and kind of get in thick of things. But I do see, and it might not necessarily be fractional. It might be, again, brand partnerships, different things that we're looking at. But I have been much more intentional in my approach to that. And the other thing, and I know Philly might bring it up a little later, is like fractional now versus forever as well. Like for some people, they might pivot between fractional and full-time. So it's also you don't want to be out of sight, out of mind if there's potential people that you could benefit from meeting and connecting with longer term as well.
We talked a little bit just now about upskilling, staying relevant in this world that's changing so quickly. Do either of you have any other advice around resources or how you go about it, how much of your time you carve out to stay sharp?
I try to learn something new every day. I'm a fan of newsletters and just kind of doing a deep dive. I keep up on the news as I was when I was in corporate. And because I'm advising clients on that too, right? And so what goes on in the world informs the work that we do. So it's not only staying on top of things in the HR world, but staying on top of the world in general. I don't put a hard time to it. But I try to devote some time every day to learning something new. And then I'll go like an all-out sprint. So like I had to teach myself to do some back-end website stuff, and I was like 2 days of heads down and learning and teaching myself how to do that, diving into AI, same type of thing. But that's how it works for me. But I think just stay on top of as if you were in corporate still, but actually more.
Yeah. The other thing I would add for me, I currently advise 4 startups in the HR tech space as well as brand partners. And part of the reason I got into doing some of that work is the fact that you get to do things like help them think about their go-to-market strategy or give them product feedback. Right. And so that keeps me on my toes too, because I'm using like flexing different muscles than I have in the past. And usually also there's an emerging technology AI component to what's going on. So those are things, it's a lot of real-time learning with what's happening in different companies that I may be connected with.
Yeah, and I'm doing the same. And with brand partners as well, you have to stay on top of doing demos. You have to be aware of who their competitors are. You have to keep on track. You have to keep track of the technology coming out.
It's interesting that you bring up sort of this diversity of income streams, and somebody in the chat also just asked, are you doing any coaching? advisory work as part of each of your businesses. Can you talk us through maybe what that looks like and how you thought about that split? How do you make sure you're, you're competitive relative to whoever else maybe can do that work, even if you're doing it across a few different companies and work streams?
So we've kind of built together. So Alex, you start and then I'll fill in.
Yeah,
we
I
kind
was
of
about to say we
went
could
on this
tag team
journey
this
together.
one. Yeah, we could tag team this one. So I think where both of us are in, and Tracie will correct me if I'm wrong, we're kind of splitting our business into fractional, advisory, brand partnerships, and speaking. And the whole idea was that you've got different revenue levers then. And so when the sort of, you're not getting work in a certain area, hopefully another area will, plump you back up basically, right? Because the thing about fractional that I think scares people, and I understand the fear, I think we live the fear as well, is the feast or famine approach to this kind of work as well. Because it can be, you can have too much work at times and you could have a lack of work at times too. So that was part of diversifying, Phil, like the different types of work as well. And I would say there's certain ones that are more, consistent with the cash flow too, like fractional and brand partnerships probably being two of them. Speaking you'll get for like specific engagements potentially, right? The advisory is hard. I think one thing that Tracie and I are trying to do more of is paid advisory work, because a lot of the advisory to companies generally comes in the form of, advisory shares, which I describe as funny money, and like, referral agreements, which could be lucrative if you have a client that actually wants to sign with that potential business too. So Tracie, did I do us proud?
You did us proud. And let me fill in a little bit because I know there's a lot of interest on here. First of all, we'll touch on brand partnerships, but Alex and I think, are going to do a LinkedIn Live late next month that will dive deep into that. Because in the early days, that was a significant source of revenue that really helped me build my business. And so I exactly like Alex said, bucket it out that way. And I think the exception is that I have a one less advisory client. So that would be for the equity. And then I have more advisory clients. I work with clients in the distribution space. So I describe that as, yes, I do fractional work, but I'm helping people do the thing instead of doing the thing. I did do coaching for a bit. I actually turned that into advisory because what I found out was what the distribution world, what the industrial world needed, not necessarily just coaching, but they needed coaching, development, upskilling. They needed to know what was going on in the world of HR tech, which was going on in AI. I embed AI into what I do with all of my clients. I teach them. I do a workshop with them. And so that's one piece. So I know we're going to get into pricing a little bit, but I only charge retainer. I only work monthly, and I specifically call out, this is what I do. This is what you get. And with brand partnerships, same type of thing. It's, a combination of maybe events or posting, or I build in calls with their teams, some demos, things like that, and charge a monthly amount. And that works for me. That was a lot of trial and error. I know a lot of fractional people charge hourly. My brain did not want to do that. I fought my former employer on that. They're like, yeah, but you can charge. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, I'll walk away from this. It just doesn't work for me. And for me, the value that I provide is me. And it's, I give a lot to my clients. We may have 4 meetings a month, but then they can hotline me anytime. Right. And so that there's a value to that for me, it wasn't worth it to charge on an hourly basis.
Yeah. And I will say on an ad hoc basis, I do things like coaching and micro consulting, but it's really like when that kind of comes in, it's not like a core offering. I might post about it on LinkedIn from time to time and say, just a reminder, I do these services. And, I get some outreach on that when that happens, but I'm not looking to make that like part of my core business on a day-to-day, which is, that's why you promote what you want to promote basically in that regard too. I do see there's a lot of like interest in the chat about the brand partnerships. I think one question, Phil, was whether everyone from this webinar will be invited to the brand partnerships chat. I saw that question there too.
Yeah, we'll have a takeaway doc and we can link to it. Takeaway doc that everybody on the call will get.
Awesome.
I will say with that, it's not absolutely necessary, but having a large network, I think we both have over 35,000 people we're connected to. That actually helps. You know, it's not absolutely necessary, but there is a component of sharing things on social media. So if you're extremely active and have a decent sized network on any platform, I think this is something that could work for you. But if you don't, it could potentially also work for you.
Yeah.
It's all about that conversation and about how you can help that brand move forward. That was very uncomfortable for me in the beginning because they want to see like, hey, we're not getting more demos, or we are getting more demos, or we're seeing this, or we're not seeing that. So it sounds wonderful and it's really fun, but it is also really tough. Like it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, I've talked about before, like the pressure that can come with
Yeah.
that. And it might be your own internalized pressure, the pressure you put on yourself, but it is something you think about because normally when you're posting, for example, for yourself, it is for yourself, right? There's no pressure there. It's like if you get 5 likes, great. But
Yeah.
when you're doing it on behalf of somebody else, that's where it can feel a little tougher, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why you guys are in demand. I want to talk about mental health differentiation and pricing, but before we do, I want to take a quick break. Rob asked in the chat about the work that we do at SSR, how to get more involved in our network, points of view on sharing software, technology, etc. So there's a couple of different offerings that I think are relevant to people who are in a fractional role, or if you're at a company now as well. And Frida, in the background, if you wouldn't mind firing up the slides, just to kind of explain this. But basically on our website, we have the ability for anybody, and there's Tracie's smiling face, giving us a 5-star review. Anybody out there who's looking for HR software can connect with somebody on our team to get free bespoke advice on what solutions to look at and how much to pay for those solutions. So if you're looking to switch off a PEO, buy your first ATS, ditch your HRIS that you hate and try to find one that has all the features and functionality that you're looking for, whatever the case may be, there are people on our team that you can talk to for free and get bespoke advice and get that sort of concierge service. I just put a link in the chat to book a time with one of our advisors. So if you're actively looking for a new system for your company or you're helping out a client, this is really a great offering to make sure that you're buying the right tech. And we basically have people that spend all day long on our team researching the HR tech marketplace and making sure that you're going to find and buy the right technology. Because a lot of times we find companies, you're busy with everything else. You haven't stayed on top of what's the latest and greatest in the HRS market. And, we have. And so just use our expertise. So you can click on that link that I put in the bio or scan that QR code. The other thing that we did special for this webinar is we actually have a gift card that's making me hungry for lunch, even though it's 2:30 on the East Coast. I haven't eaten lunch yet, which was a big mistake. But if you sign up for one of these calls by the end of the webinar, then we'll basically buy you and your team lunch. And you can use it at any of these restaurants. It's just a way to say thank you. Your time's valuable. And we want you to have a good experience with this offering that companies like MIT, the Colts, Frank and Eileen, the UN, and thousands of other companies have used. We were talking about Weight Watchers earlier. Chief People Officer there. They're somebody who's used our service as well. So yeah, it's free. It's easy. It's a 4.9-star rating. Highly, highly recommend it if you're in the market for HR technology. The other thing that I'll mention is that if you are you already have a fractional business, we actually have a way for fractional people to leverage this service with your clientele. So we basically have a partner network. I just put a link in the chat for that as well. If you're interested in basically referring our advisors out there to the companies that you work with, you can get a little spiff back. So yeah, if you're in the market for HR software, we'd love to chat with you. And thank you so much for the kind words from Deb and others in the chat about our webinars and whatnot, because we put a lot of time into these, and it's amazing to see, you know, hundreds of people on here engaging and having a good time, and hopefully learning a lot as well. So with that, we'll go back to our regularly scheduled program here about fractional. And, you know, one of the things that I'm curious about is, how do you think about, I guess, mental health, right? And stress. And, you know, sometimes, especially when you're starting, it is kind of feast or famine. You have a brand partner, it gets 3 likes, you know, on LinkedIn, the post gets 3 likes. You're like, oh my gosh. How have you two thought about just sort of managing the stresses of being an entrepreneur?
I called Tracie.
Yeah, I call Alex. We have each other. Yeah, and you can't underestimate the power of that community. My husband's also he's a fractional COO and CFO, and he did this for 10 years and then stepped back in. I was so nervous about this that he went in-house for a year before going, I need to be back out my own, and coming back out and on his own once I was stable after the first year. But yeah, I mean, leading into community. But we both had our moments of, can we do this? And that is so natural. So natural. And we talk a lot about, well, there's not the stability. There's no stability in corporate. There's zero stability anywhere. And so what kind of life do you want to live? And for me, I did this to live. Like, I did this so I could, you know, I'm not working a million hours a week building something that's I'm going to add people to. I'm working what I want to work, and I'm traveling everywhere, doing anything that I can. I'm just living to working to travel and certainly have an impact, but this is a lifestyle for me, and I'm not going anywhere. But a lot of people do it for a time and then go back into corporate. I'm 53, and so I'm not planning on going back into corporate, but there's nothing wrong if that's what you want to do.
And I think the other thing that can show up that is very natural is imposter syndrome, because, you know, you also, like, if you've not started your own business before, or being responsible for your own taxes, or figuring out your own benefits, those can feel like way more lofty things up front than, and I think can scare people from the outset. But you just need to know that you'll figure that out over time, and surround yourself with people who've gone through it, who aren't going to judge you for asking those questions as well, is really, really huge. To Tracie's point, I did this really initially opportunistically, because I came off a sabbatical, and I had a company I advised that asked me whether I'd want to consult with them, and the market wasn't great. And I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. And now 16 months later, it's still happening. But unlike Tracie, I'm 43, and there is, you know, going to the point, Phil, that I said before about like fractional now or forever. I don't know for me. It's right now, but it might not be forever. And I think that's okay. I think that's the beauty of it. There's optionality. And I think there's a lot of people that are in different boats, and that's also okay.
Yeah.
And I'm 52, not 53. I aged myself, but yes, I'm, and Alex is just barely 43, but yeah, it's fractional for now, fractional forever, whatever is okay. And also, you know, changing from, I'm doing more advisory work than fractional work now. And so that's okay too. Build what you want to build.
Yep.
And I think doing this work, you're making yourself so marketable if you ever want to go back to that full-time role, because you're staying on top of everything. You're working across different companies, different problems, and you're just building like a network by the virtue of what you're doing, right? So I wouldn't stress
have
out.
that conversation. Like, have that conversation, like, that you maybe didn't want to have that conversation.
Yeah.
You never know.
I would also say, just think about how you like to work, because that can be a big change. If you've come from in-house, where you're used to having a team and being part of a bigger community, and like, this is a shift. Like, yes, there are communities you can join, but they could still be remote. So just think about like, what works best for you. Like, do you like to work at home? Do you want to go to a co-working space? Do you need a little noise in the background? Those are things you kind of don't necessarily think about, or I didn't think about so much until I started doing this. And then I was like, oh my God, I need to mix up where I work in order for me to, like, you know, be the best version of myself, you know, it will be around noise or people or whatever. So.
I just wanted to mention, somebody mentioned advisory versus fractional. I talked about that like everybody knows. And if you didn't see our last webinar, go back and watch it, because it was more, you know, kind of if you're entering in. But I describe fractional as doing the thing, and advisory is helping people do the thing. I don't know if you'd expand on that, but that's how I think about it.
Yeah. I think one's more sort of shaping the narrative, and the other is doing more of the blocking and tackling, as I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Much more eloquently.
We're tag teaming.
Yes.
How do you two think about differentiating yourselves in the marketplace? And, you know, it's sort of interesting, right? Like we're basically asking you all these personal questions about your journey, and there's 300 plus people watching this that are, you know, potential competitors, right? And I know neither of you have that mentality, because the world is so big, but you're being so generous. And part of it is probably because you're like, hey, I've got something that's very unique to the marketplace. And how do you think about that?
Well,
I think you have to.
No,
you go. No, you go.
Well, I would just, I'm sure we're probably going to feed off each other on this as well, is first of all, I believe in an abundance mindset, not a scarcity mindset. So I feel like there should be opportunity aplenty for people. The other thing is, I know what I like to do and what I don't like to do at this stage of my career. And so the opportunities that may come my way may not be right for me. And so that goes back to the importance of having a referral network, so you can refer that business out. It's kind of a pay it forward approach as well. So I kind of just want to be known at this stage for the things that I enjoy doing. And that's what I try and get across to potential clients as well, and how I could have an impact with them.
And +1 to the abundance mindset, there's enough work for all of them, for all of us, right? And you know, I get approached that I kick stuff to other people all the time, and I have people do the same thing for me. I specialize in a niche, and that's helpful. It's helpful for me. And I think the other thing is the confidence in your own abilities and the confidence in what you offer. I've had things straight up ripped off, and you know, I think we all have at a certain point, whether it be a post or whether it be, you know, structure or something like that. And I think the confidence to know, like, okay, that's going to happen, you know, stuff is going to happen, and you know, I'm confident in my own abilities to serve my clients well.
It's very flattering. One of the biggest competitors that we have, which is massive by any standard, their website is pixel by pixel, looks like ours. They updated it a few months ago, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I never thought they even knew who we were. Wonderful. This is a super tactical question, but I am curious, what are the expenses that you have on an ongoing basis in each of your businesses?
The bane, you asked the question that's the bane of Tracie's existence, Phil.
Yeah. So the first year, and this is something we haven't talked about or whether we get to it, but Sam Eaton is always a huge supporter of ours. She's a coach based in the UK, and I hired a coach. It wasn't Sam, but I hired a coach early on to help me with this, and I didn't listen quite well enough, because I was like, oh, you know, this is great, and so didn't properly plan to structure taxes and things like that. So now I'm properly structured, and so I have a lot of subscriptions, and I built my business kind of like a business. So I use QuickBooks. I have subscriptions to all the major Gen AI tools, because I use AI with a lot of my client work, and for a lot of things, I do a lot of speaking. I have, you know, a note taker that's also AI based that I have a subscription to. I have a website, and there's a subscription there, and there's things with the website. So I have a lot of business expenses. That's how I chose to do it. You can also do it much more. And I think, Alex, you have not quite so many of the tools attached
not
to the
as
business.
many. Yeah, no,
But you have some.
I have some of the same ones. So I have obviously AI expenses, other thing, and that ranges from like a Claude to a Gamma for PowerPoints to like it, you know, different kind of things that are going to help find shortcuts for productivity as well, especially if you're working with multiple clients at a time. Travel expenses, obviously, if there's potential things related to that. Website, I've been very slow on getting my website off the ground, but that's another expense. And then also even thinking about like LinkedIn, other associations that might be deemed expenses as well. It's also interesting when you go through it with your own accountant and you realize how much and what can actually be expensed as well. And so I think also after you've been through the first year of doing this, you're in a much better space to fully understand what you can expense and what you can't as well.
Somebody asked about insurance and liability insurance, which is relatively affordable and highly recommended, and health insurance, which is not and can be pretty brutal. So we're going through that COBRA process now. So that is definitely an expense to factor in.
Yeah. Thank you guys for sharing that. I know a lot of people have been patient by not posting their LinkedIn profiles. I really appreciate that. And this is the time in the webinar where anybody who wants to can share their LinkedIn profile URL in the chat. I'll share mine right now. And that's basically an open invitation. You're saying, hey, I'm interested in this topic. I want to network. Feel free to connect with me. I recommend if you're on this to connect with, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that are maybe, they have a similar level as you do, or maybe it's very different, right? Maybe it's like, hey, I'm a director and I want to talk to a chief people officer, or, I'm still in my corporate role and I want to talk to somebody who actually has their own fractional practice. Talk to 2 or 3 people on this chat and connect with them, network with them, help each other out. The abundance mindset, I think, is phenomenal. This has just been a great community. We hear from people all the time that basically said, hey, I met somebody through your webinar, and we love to hear that. Everybody here is trying to learn, trying to figure stuff out. We've all figured out some stuff and haven't figured out most things. And so don't feel shy, and please just be generous with your time, your network, your insights and resources. Per usual, we have an extremely aggressive agenda, and we've shared, I feel like we've shared like so many amazing insights here, and I'm just realizing that we have 12 minutes left and there's probably not enough time to go through everything, but let's try to hit as many as we can. And one thing that, I was talking to a friend of mine who's doing starting a fractional business, and at the same time, they're starting a product business. And I think this is sort of a common setup where maybe you've got some sort of app that you want to create. Have either of you thought about that? Have you seen other people that have an idea for kind of like a business that's maybe not doesn't fall into the fractional category and is doing that at the same time?
Yeah. I'm helping a client build an advisory practice that's going to be a niche focus, not on what my niche is. But my husband, I talked about him being fractional, not HR, but he has the is weird but true number 3 metal detecting podcast in the world. So he just picked it up again and is working on his fractional practice while also building that, which could be, as he goes forward in his career, something that he can really monetize. He's working on a book, etc. So my work will all be that, but the things that I'm doing are also building to something, HR adjacent, but yet another line of business.
Amazing. One thing that I think a lot of people are trying to figure out is you onboard a new client, there's a scope, and they start pushing you. They're like, how do you set the right expectations from the get-go? And how do you manage the guardrails as the relationship continues? And maybe when do you think about rewriting the contract a bit to make sure that you're getting compensated for the value that you're bringing to the table?
I would say when you start seeing that scope creep really starting to take off, right? I think up front, it's great to be as specific as possible. And I do, yes, Deb, boundaries is where I was going to go.
Deb's had some
easier
great
said than
commentary,
done, though. Yeah.
I like we have like Deb like narrating. We basically have Deb narrating in the chat, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And the thing is, and it is true though, what Deb's saying, reiterating boundaries is key along the way, because you can say something from the get-go and everyone's like, yeah, absolutely. But once you're in the thick of the work and they realize they didn't know what they didn't know in terms of the amount of work they need or different things they need, then you kind of do need to say, okay, like I've done this, like, can we pause for a second? Like, I need to make sure that we're focused on the right work and aligned with what we were talking about as well. And I think that's why different people have different viewpoints again on pricing, right? Because with a retainer model, that's like set fixed, you know what's coming in, but that also means you got to be wary of scope creep and that you don't get taken advantage of, right? But then with an hourly model, it gives you more flexibility, but it also scares potential clients because they don't know how much you're potentially going to be charging them a month. And it's also more of an administrative burden for you. So, but I'm all about boundaries and reiterating them as well.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, but it's important to do that. And Deb called out Sam again and again. Follow Sam Eaton if you're not following her already, because she shares absolute gold and has a mastermind program that's awesome. And the two biggest questions we get, I think, are on, we talked a lot about business development, but also on pricing, and that's almost a whole separate thing. And there, for every fractional leader there's a different way to price, and it's so personal. But there are resources that we can share with Phil, and hopefully maybe send some links out as we're wrapping up the webinar if we don't get to all of that.
Yeah, we can put that again in the takeaways doc so everybody has as a reference. Each of you mentioned AI tools. It sounds like presentations. I know, Tracie, you had a whole like AI week or so on LinkedIn and posting and some fun things in addition to some useful things. Can you talk about how you're both using AI in your practice?
Oh, yeah. It's a thought partner as I'll give you a really practical example. So there's a organization that I was talking to about, potentially doing some work with, and they have an AI conference coming up. It's an industry association. And we talked about yesterday, we talked about, maybe doing something, and maybe they'll have me speak at their upcoming conference. And then I got in a call that afternoon with, we're interested in having you speak at our AI conference. And then this morning I was able to use AI to generate some ideas through doing some deep research on what I could present, because it's a brand new type of topic. So I had some killer ideas researched based on me, based on the organization, based on conversations that I had. And so it's analyzing and putting together information that I have to edit, but that's a really good example. And so time and time again, it can be used to analyze information. I use it for notes and finding patterns, and I don't use it to write. I do not use it to write. A lot of people do, but I don't. But I use it for almost everything else.
I'm very similar. So I tend to use it for, anything from, from working with clients, and it's things as simple as job descriptions, things that will need to be edited and finessed, but potential interview questions, things like that, like based on people's resume and the JD. It really kind of runs the gamut for me. And I've recently was like, how did I not have this previously, like, or in the past? Because it does a lot of the shorthand, right? It augments a lot of things for you. It doesn't replace you having to still do the thinking, right? I also think for like things like speaking and, coming up with topic titles, things like that, things like it really kind of, and I've also encouraged clients that I'm working with, if they're not using enough AI, that they need to start using it in their day-to-day as well. So I try to pay it forward in terms of adoption as well.
And Deb mentioned she uses it for writing. A lot of people do. No shame to that for that. AI in writing, that's very common. It's just not something that works for me.
We're going to share the resource that you reference around pricing, but do you have any, as sort of a last topic here, guidelines, frameworks for folks that are thinking about how to price their offerings to the market?
Yeah, so that's it. The famous words, it depends, right? It
Mhm.
depends on what you do, what you're offering. You know, this is what I thought was going to be my strategy to go in was price a, say, culture audit, an HR audit, and then price monthly beyond there. It turns out that it's just the advisory services and the fractional work that really is in demand. So finding that intersection of Ashley Hurd, I think about this a lot. She wrote recently, and I never pronounce this correctly, Ikagi, what you want, what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what people will pay you to do. And finding the intersection of that is really, really, really critical for me. And I think about that all the time, and that does change. And so, how do you want to build? Like, how do you want to get paid? What do your clients need? Like, what works for them? And then figuring out a model that works from there. There's lots of different models. There's nothing perfect, but take the time to do the research and figure it out. Fractional people is an excellent resource for this too.
Yeah. And I tested out different models over time, you know, between and to just see what kind of works with me, what works for the client, what has the best sort of rate of return all around, things of that nature. But to Tracie's point, there's nothing perfect. But I do love I think it is a Kagi mantra that as well. Like I think it works really well. But yeah, that's kind of what I would just add there.
Awesome. I want to thank you both for this amazing, jam-packed, lots of insights, tactics, stories, personal stories session. We're going to launch a quick feedback poll right now, just to let us know what you thought about this. We're always trying to make these webinars impactful. We do probably 4 of them a month at this point. We just did one on DEI and dealing with executive orders. We've got ones coming up on building your career, finding your next job in HR, people analytics, HR technology, kind of you name it. We've got a lot of really great content coming up. And Frida, under my colleague Frida, that shows up as Select Software Reviews, just posted a couple of the ones that we have coming up. So keep an eye out for those. I'll also just post one more time if you want to take advantage of our advisor service in the chat here. There's a link to the landing page that has more about the offering, as well as the calendar link there. The other thing that we run that is actually quite popular is called People Ops Jobs. And so this is a job board where people, I actually got 2 messages yesterday from people that found a job on People Ops Jobs, which is like super cool. And so I'll link to that as well. And yeah, I think, it's a great conversation. And every time we do this, it's sort of like, all right, like we need to do another one. We could probably do an entire conversation about pricing, an entire conversation about differentiation in the market, business development, et cetera. And so I would imagine we probably will continue to have these conversations. But thank you both for your time, your insights. Thanks for everybody, the amazing questions, the energy in the chat. It's just great. And if you're watching this now or in the future as a recording, feel free to scan that QR code if you're looking for HR software and need our help. Again, it's free, 4.9 star rating, and hopefully it'll save you a lot of time. Make sure you buy the right software. So thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you on the next webinar.
And thank you, Phil.
Thanks, Phil.
And thanks everybody for joining.
Yeah, it's been great.
Thank you so much.
Bye.